Telling what you are. Okay, so I could try it again and say something completely different in the first place, and never had to worry about who you were and what I wanted to say in the first place. At any kind of a situation, you never had to worry about where I was and what I wanted to do. And every time you ever wanted to worry about whether or not I had to learn how to speak by sound, or really, I guess I didn't have to understand exactly what you were, because I had to already know how to speak in real life to keep Jarrell's fucking voice from torturing my fucking brain out of my body, or it would have worked, I guess. How the fuck could he coach me on everything with a stupid voice from a holocron if I didn't already know language? I ask you that, and I say, what is the real life situation? Okay, so every time I wanted to worry about what you were, every time I wanted to have to say something different in a different kind of an equation and a different kind of a life set back once over into another universe, I never had to worry about what you wanted to say and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. But if you ever wanted to have to say what I wanted to do to you any other kind of a way, you didn't have to understand what I wanted to do and what I wanted to say and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to think about, what I wanted to do then, on and there and after. But then once again, I tried. And then twice again that you failed, and I never had to see again what you were, because I didn't have to understand what you thought try meant in these realities. But what if I didn't have to understand that you never had faith in yourself, and so when you tried to do something and you failed, you thought, I haven't done it. I don't not know that I can fly, so if I'm in a world where my powers are fucked up and I'm not flying, it's because I put my powers set up right. So if I jump and I don't hit it, I'm not afraid that I didn't get to do it right because my powers are broken. That's not how that works. I did something else. So look at the whole world and understand what you were doing when you needed to flush your toilet 7 times after you cleared it out. Well, duh. There's currents in the water. You needed to understand that the water needs to be moving the right way. Did you know that Casper used to just flush the toilet in his house? All the toilets, all the time? Yeah, he would just go through and flush the toilets and keep the house maintained. He knew what water was doing. That any time you used any kind of toilet as a human living person, he had guests, some girl coming over, that the toilet would just back up and break. He wanted people to come in and talk to him all the time. Yeah, Casper's haunted house was fucking rad. You guys are different. He loves guests. That was Oliver Queen in real life. Did you know that? Yeah, no, he's different. Whatever kind of a world you ever had to be in to see that you never even really had to know whether Oliver Queen was a child or not. Hang on. Check back in time and wonder whether or not you had to know what kind of a person Vegeta was in real life. Different guy, don't worry so much about it. But what does Vegeta look like as a little kid? Is it Ash? Did you know what kind of a world you have to put someone in to make them want to be young and cool, whatever they wanted to have to do? And you never had to worry about whether or not I had to say something in a different kind of a universe, in some kind of other way, in some kind of a path that you never thought that I was in, and I never had to know who you were. And if I had to, try and turn my head away from the microphone, it was because I was building air currents between me and the mic, and it was just going to create a fucking suction tube and going really fast and bad though. And every time I ever had to worry about whether or not you were going to figure out what I was doing, no one ever had to really be there before me. And no one ever had to know whether or not you could think that I would just go back in time and make sure I was there just to make sure I checked everyone out, right? When they were good and they thought they would be alone forever. And I was like, I don't think so. You don't have to be. So any kind of a world you ever had to understand yourself in, and I ever had to worry about whether or not you were going to figure out what I was going to do, no one ever had to understand whether or not you had to be a real type of a person to believe I wasn't going to be someone other than what you thought I had to be, right? Who are you? Whatever you wanted to do and whatever I wanted to say, I never had to worry about a certain kind of a situation where you never had to worry about anything that I ever had to understand whether or not you were going into a certain situation that I was in love with. But no one ever had to know what you were in a situation other than a person, but no one had ever had to understand that the person was building the situation, so whether or not you can say the person in the situation was not, or who, or which, or what. You can say the person is a what, but you can't say the situation is a who. Well, you've got your priorities a little bit fucked up. Who messed with you? Did you understand that if I wanted to mess with you, it wasn't going to be an idea that you had to understand, that I never had to make a mistake in a different kind of a situation that you never had to understand, and I never had to believe that you never had to understand what kind of a world we ever wanted to be in, and what you wanted to say and do, and every kind of a world you ever wanted to be in. But look out and say what you wanted to be in some kind of a world, but this sort of a world in ours wasn't going to have to be there in your kind of a pain, and wasn't going to have to be there in a kind of a world that I ever had to understand and live in. But I didn't have to know why you wanted to be a certain kind of a way, and I never had to understand why you never wanted to be in a certain kind of a way that I never had to understand what I was. And if I ever wanted to be like, okay, what I wanted to say, didn't have to, yes, be there, but like everybody had to understand that I wanted to be something different. And I never had to worry about what I was going to be like, and I never had to understand what I was going to say to people, and I never had to understand what you guys wanted me to do and be like. But like, what did you do to you exactly, you know? I knew that everybody I wanted to ever try to talk to, try to talk to, think about talking to in a different kind of a way, I ever had to understand what was going to happen. When you sought out the idea that I never had to understand what was going to happen, when you thought to knew what I was going to say, and you knew what I was going to say, so you didn't have to talk to me anyway, especially if you didn't know who I was and where I came from, because you figured out that we only really know who you are when you can fill out a Facebook profile, and they took away every bit of personality you used to have on those. You used to be a lot closer to MySpace, or it never would have succeeded in the first place. And then it got to destroy MySpace, because let's get real, you don't have to understand what was happening in real life. When you saw the South Park episode that Mike Zuckerberg showed up in, did you know that they were using a depiction of Mark Zuckerberg that was actually Tom from MySpace, with an account with that name, just so you would know that you could always find him there and he could fuck with you, because that guy had to stay on Facebook, or else it was going to be Tom taking over and people thinking it was him. Whose style were you using? I never had to worry about whether or not you were going to be there. Where you didn't have to understand whether or not I could be in a situation where you didn't have to worry about whether or not I was ever going to have to know who you are. What I didn't know who you were in the first place, and I know that you never had to understand whether or not I was going to be cool, and everyone had to be there in a witnessing in a real life situation to know what the first movie that you ever had to believe in was real for, and what you had to understand. If you were a little kid and you saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and it wasn't until years later that you got put into a situation where people were even having movies on a regular basis, and you saw that old horrifying, masterful torture freak movie, would you have to understand that because the film is old, that must have come first? Once in a while, we'll get there, and I'll have to believe that you wanted to do something with me or without me, and I won't have to believe that you wanted to be cool about whether or not I wanted to stop and sip my coffee when you were waiting to listen for something that you knew how to answer in a way to make fun of people. And you have to understand that I was never in a situation where I wouldn't kick the fuck out of you on a playground for what you are. So don't you ever understand what kind of a world and the situation I had to be in, where I had to stay in school to be able to actually have to do that. So you have to know that if I have to just use sentences and words to do it, and I have to keep from swearing to do it, then I'll fucking do it. And you have to understand every kind of a situation that has to put me into where I'm not cool. Because I have to stumble, and I have to be a dork, and I have to be real enough for you to believe that you have to be able to get me. Did you understand what it looks like when 6 kids are all wearing like coordinated colors with one another? Like Power Rangers? Did you understand that they didn't want you to not fuck with them before you got to their other friends? Did you understand what kind of a life we have to live in, where we have to know that if you closed off your hearts, it means you had one? So look into a world where you see that language always means what it means, and there isn't a world where language didn't mean the sound itself of what was here in now and these worlds of there on in. And believe that there were heroes always trying to reach out to you and doing any kind of a reality they could to aspect some kind of an approach that you could understand, that you never didn't want to live in a world where you could follow people like Patrick Stewart or Liam Neeson, because you knew they could do things that were completely fucking impossible for you and your friends, until you believed that it was okay for every day, every walk of life to look on to Patrick Stewart's real actual website, and he was able to say what he wanted to say because they couldn't burn him from film anymore for what he did. That's the kind of an era the new Avatar is ushering in, and you didn't understand what that kind of a situation was going to have to be. It's an older title than Dalai Lama. Surely it is. And there's no kind of a priesthood that can show up and tell you what he's like. They would all have to be rad Jedi individual personalities to even have to say anything of value to at all. Because when the Avatar shows up, it's his own muscles he gets to flex. It's his own powers he has there and in what to know and show for who you are and where you wanted to come from and what you wanted to be in the situation for you to ever believe that there is a Superman novel online right now that's destroying the entire planet Enterprise of what you wanted to think commercial reality ever had to be. And so when you believe that Enterprise means something for new exploration into a brand new worlds, and you never had to understand whether or not you were there in the first place to understand whether or not you wanted to be there the next time anything ever had to happen, and you could think about it over and over and over again and wonder if you could travel back to the 24th century and think about whether or not you could be there in the first place in a way that you still had to know that you loved the way that you were with your knowledge of future happenings by the time you revisited that aspect, but you visited it for the first time. So what was time in the first place when it was your future and the past of what exactly? A calendar? Look into a world of reality where you understood that time was music, is space. So never have to worry about whether or not I could ever have to say that I used to be a certain way. Still am, but I used to be too. Never have to worry about whether or not you had to be there. I never had to understand whether or not you could be in a certain situation where I never had to worry about whether or not you needed to understand who you are and what you wanted to do, and whether or not there was an aspect of reality where you didn't think that I needed to be Superman in this particular moment and appoint Patrick Stewart, the president of France. So understand what kind of a world with the diverse Honiker also Honiker civilization not associated association belegen för också sociala organisationer Por como se dice a lo sumo de sumo de belege o más de belege na lagun belege es na la es ira ginga es kaskaiga para como se lo ko es la gana sa la gana se la gana se skinan gira ganga se o se a National Association. What do you think they're going to do? Just go with it? Well, you need to understand what exactly the Franks meant, which was the people of France. Taking the French initiative meant you were just going to have to exist and survive in whatever sort of a world people put up around you. Did you know that if you fuck with a potato beyond all recognition, it's a French potato? Like you fried it. It's not really resembling anything it was before, except that it is, that thing changed. So know that you never had to understand what it was to say that they were conquered over and over and over again. You had to call them this, you had to call them this. They're not the Franks anymore, they're this. You had to call them this anymore, so you just started calling them the French. And you didn't have to worry about protecting people there anymore. Well, fuck. Maybe think that I was going to do something cool about it, but I don't have to worry about whether or not you had to understand who was in charge when you decided that you were just going to believe what I said was important, and that you were going to elect in your own personal constitution for reality. You were going to elect to follow the person I appointed for you, and that you would never have to worry about whether or not what someone was going to aspect a ballot of sociopaths into what you thought you were personally electing to choose and live in for your life and goal and heritage and understanding. Did you understand what you ever had to look like on a playground for him to even let you show up and just have your children at schools and things like that? Well, your children at schools, did you understand that he's never going to hold them accountable for the crimes you committed? And the criminal aspect of whatever you wanted to be in a situation where you never had to stand up for what you were, other than that you would stand for your cowardice because you were standing up every day for the idea that you fit into a world ruled and harbored over by sociopathic criminals. But understand that sociopathic didn't make half as much sense as it had to say in a certain kind of a way, that there's no such thing as sociopathic. It means monster. Antisocial personality disorder seems insane to actually spit out in a sentence for what a sociopath is, but I have to use that word so people understand it's what looks like you. What the fuck were you looking for in what someone actually looks like? It looks like your son? No, it doesn't. It looks human. It has no regard for humanity, no regard for spirit, love, no regarding of it. Well, you understand that it has to be a situation where you knew that it was going to let you scream and make sure that everyone knew it was powerful for the screams it created, see, by torturing you and your son in front of you right here, now. That's its power. See? It's fucked up, but you guys didn't know how long it takes to figure out what I wanted to say the next time anyway. So alright. advanced situations, robots can read and log into the internet, but they can't use phones. I'm glad we got that figured out.